there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today I'm going to show you how you can use scrap clay and also Sculpey bacon bend clay to make your own rubber stamps and molds that you can use in your crafting projects. This box here I stamped using a rubber stamp that I had made with Sculpey bacon bend clay. I just pressed it on an embossing folder and then made a great stamp like that. I'm going to show you how you can use that clay to make really fun molds that you can use time and time again, and lots of other fun stuff too, lots of clay tips to get you going. I'm using an old, I don't want to touch it, it's very hot, an old toaster oven to bake my clay. I really recommend if you have an old toaster oven to use that, because then you won't get the fumes and stuff in your oven. So I've got my old toaster oven, I've got my clay, I am ready to create, so let's go to the table. This is the rubber stamp I told you about that I stamped that box with. The honeycomb pattern, you can see I used some permanent ink so it's stained so you can kind of see the way it looks. I used to have some double-sided tape on the back. And look at how the clay will like bend and flex. This is the Sculpey Bacon Bend clay. It's a lot of fun to use. This was $7 and I got 6 1-ounce blocks of clay. And the nice thing about using this as opposed to using like an epoxy 2-part type molding material is that you don't need to use it all up at once. With the 2-part epoxy molds that you might find molding materials in the art supply or craft store, you mix up like some of part A and some of part B and you mix it together and you've got to use that up. If not, it's just going to cure and harden and it will go to waste. So with this, you only you can use what you need, then you bake it. It will not cure until you bake it. So the first thing you want to do when you get your clay is to unwrap it and knead it. And you want to knead it for about, I would say at least 5 minutes, 5 to 10. I've been working on this for about 5 minutes. And another tip I will share with you, since I work in my basement, it's really cold down here, I bring my clay upstairs where it's about 70 degrees and leave it up there for a little while so it'll be easier to smush around. Or you could stick a brick of clay in your pocket and your body heat will warm it up to make it a little bit easier to knead. But I found that clay will last for years and years as long as it never gets overheated, so storing it in my cool basement is just ideal for that. Alright, so let me show you some other commercially made molds. This is a silicone mold. It's a Martha Stewart. The silicone molds are nice because they're resistant to heat. So you can use all sorts of different materials. You can use friendly plastic, hot glue, as well as clay, epoxy, and stuff like that. So I really like the silicone molds, but they're very hard to find in my area, and they're expensive to order online. Molds also can be made of rubber. These are some, I think this is an Amico, it's either Amico or Sculpey, it's a rubber mold. They are not good in heat. I've melted some molds because I've tried to use friendly plastic on them, these rubber molds. But still, they flex, so it's very easy to get your clay out after you've pushed something into mold. And then there are some molds that are just rigid, like a hard type of plastic or resin. This is an Amico face mold, like a doll mold. And with these rigid molds, a lot of times you have to let your clay sit in there and stir and get harden up a bit before you can take them out. So it's not ideal for everything. Now, if you want, you can use your scrap polymer clay. So when you're done projects and you have these little bits, stick them in a baggie, and then when you're ready, you can mix them all up and you can use these to make molds. I did a tutorial on my blog on that a while back, just a photo one, not a video. But here are some of the molds that I made. I did some cameos, some old buttons. I had a bunch of vintage buttons that were my grandmother's that I didn't want to use. So I decided if I made molds, and I could make up a bunch. And here are some of the buttons that I made. Let me zoom. Let me bring this up to the camera a little bit so you can see. These are just some of the little clay buttons I made from the castings. Okay, so to make our molds, basically what you need to do is you need to have something that you want to cast. And I've got these lovely gears. I've got some of the Tim Holtz Ideology gears. And I've got these Blue Moon gears. I like to use a lot of these gears on my cards and other altered items. But it gets expensive after a while, and I hate to use them up. So this way I can make as many as I want. So basically what I want to do is grab a piece of clay that's a little bit bigger than what I want to make a mold of and just roll it into a circle. I got a kind of a grape-sized circle there. And then I'm just going to press it down and make sure it's big enough for the item that I want to make a mold of. That's pretty good. Now I want to put the item, see how I got a front side and a back side? I want to put it front side down onto the clay. And I'm just going to give it a good press. Now if you haven't conditioned your clay well, then it'll kind of crack on you. Now I'm just going to kind of push up on the edges to make sure that it's in there well. And then I'm going to let this actually sit for a bit and cool down, so my body heat is off of that. Let it cool down, and then I will peel that item out and you'll be able to see my casting. You can use old keys, embellishments that you have, anything that you'd like to be able to make doubles of. So I've already conditioned this clay. It's very important you condition it good, because if you don't, your molds will crack. And I'm just working on one of those dollar store flexible cutting mats. Make sure you have the front side. Press it down in there. And squeeze the edges a bit. I just want to make sure that the clay is going to come up around, so I have enough room to be able to cast something in there. Alright, we'll make one more, and then we will pop them in the oven. Let me see if I have any other tips for you here using the clay. I do find that clay that is more flexible, such as like the Primo and the Bacon Bend clay and Fimo clay, that end up curing more flexible, are stiffer to work with than like the Sculpey 3, which cures really hard. That's a lot softer to work with. But the clays that are harder to use, harder to work with, that turn out more flexible, are more durable. So it's kind of worth the extra effort to be able to work with those clays. Alright, I'm going to take the item out of this. I haven't been talking much today, so my words aren't coming out as well as I'd hoped. There we go. I'm just using my fingernail to pull that out. Now, you see what nice detail I get there. Now these will need to be baked in my toaster oven at 285 degrees for about 15 minutes. Be sure you check your package directions to see exactly how long you need to bake the clay that you have. All clays are a little bit different. Some will cure at 30 minutes, some will cure at 20 minutes, some will cure at 15 minutes. The more flexible clays generally take a little bit longer, but not always, so you want to make sure that you check. This is a great way to make multiples of keys, buttons, charms, any other embellishments that you really want to make multiples of. Oh my gosh, duh. I think I just said that. Okay, so let me bake these and we'll come back in a minute and see how they turned out. Okay, the molds are out of the oven, they're cooled off, and here I did a key. You can see it's got some flex to it. So when I put my clay in there, I'll be able to flex the sides to get it out. I've got my gears here. Maybe I should have done those in a lighter color to make it easier to see. You can see they've got nice flex. It's going to be a lot easier to remove the clay from these than on the scrap polymer clay molds that I made before. So to use them, you would just condition your clay and press them in and just flex and pull them out. Or if you have a really detailed design like some of these gears, you might actually want to push it in there, wipe off the extra clay, let it sit up, or pop it in your freezer for 5 or 10 minutes, and then you'll be able to pop your little embellishments right out. So there you go, how to make inexpensive molds using polymer clay and Sculpey Bacon Bend clay. So use up your scraps if you have them. If you don't have any clay, I highly recommend this Bacon Bend for making molds because it works really good and it's so much cheaper than the two-part epoxy molding stuff that is on the market right now. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.